Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of Bearcat Chats. We're talking athletics, hoops specifically, as we're joined by Brenton Mills from the Binghamton men's basketball team and Denai Bowman from the women's basketball team. Hey, guys, thanks so much for joining me.
Yep, you're welcome.
Tell me, Brenton, we'll start with you. You and Denai had your seasons disrupted because of the pandemic. And I think of athletes being in a very structured schedule, down to the month, down to the week of how you're preparing for the next season. Once
hmm
last year was disrupted, how did you adjust your schedule with the restrictions to get ready for this year?
Well, starting off, because I had to go back home to Texas, the gyms weren't open. So really, I was just going outside, going on runs, playing on outside hoops. And then once the gyms opened back up, I started just working out twice a day. So I would lift in the mornings and then go back at night and just, work out on basketball.
Yeah, same. Like the gyms weren't open when I went back home, so I was just doing anything to just stay in shape and be somewhat ready for when we do get the chance to come back. But gyms never opened back up in Maryland, so luckily I did have a hoop outside my home, so I went there, and then when I came back, I was just in the gym all the time.
And Brenton, you're using that hoop behind you, or that's for show?
I mean, when we were in quarantine when I first got here, of course, I had to keep, working on my shot. But yeah.
Well, we joke about it, but like with baseball players, for instance, they were using hotel rooms. The pillows, I think, is like basically virtual catchers to throw the ball again. So you never
Wow.
know.
hmm
Danae, tell me, how did you, with the uncertainty of the season and when it was going to start, as the pandemic has gone on and as you got towards the summer and the fall, what was the communication like between you and your teammates?
During the summer, we had a lot of Zoom calls, basically with like team activities, just trying to get our bond stronger for when we do come back. And then during the fall, we try to spend as much time as we can together um, on the court and try to off, but we want to keep our social distancing. But yeah, we just try to spend as much time as we can as possible and try to just get to know each other because we do have a fresh team this year. Yeah.
Yeah, Brenton, when I think of, we hear chemistry talked about a lot, on the court, off the court chemistry leading to on the court chemistry without being in the flesh, seeing each other. How do you develop that?
I really just think it's day to day contact because just like Danae said in the summer, we would have a lot of Zoom meetings together, especially since we were a very new team. So just having those Zoom meetings together, meeting each other, and staying in touch, I think really helped us because once we got back on the court together, I feel like we were really flowing with each other and our team chemistry was going up.
And what about for both of you? Start with Danae in terms of, I'm sure you both set goals for a season, and what you want to improve on individually. Did you have to adapt those goals at all because of the pandemic, or how did you maintain them?
I would say, yes, I had goals, but it was really like team goals. So since we had a new team, I wanted to just really develop chemistry and start seeing what our strengths and weaknesses are. And the virus, I mean, the pandemic kind of limited that because we can't do as much as we want to. Like just because when games get canceled, it's hard. But at the same time, we're doing what we have to do to get better.
Yeah, I would say the same thing for us, especially because like my main goal this year was to get us to the playoffs because I know last year we did make the playoffs, so I feel like that was a big part of us preparing and staying ready, just in case we did have a season, which we are. So
Yeah, that's a good point, Danae, in terms of the fluidity of these games. As we're talking, you've both played, or I'm sorry, the women have played one game so far. How do you stay fresh? Can you simulate game action in practice?
We do try our best. It's very competitive in practice just because we haven't released that steam off from playing in a game. So our coaches try to like maintain competition in every drill.
And for you, Brenton, for instance, you guys were supposed to play one opponent, and then Youngstown State ends up replacing that opponent. How do your coaches and your teammates adapt on the fly with a different opponent?
Really just day by day, because from what I'd heard, we were supposed to play Robert Morris like 2 days before, and then all of a sudden he was like, that game's canceled. And then the next day we already had a new opponent. So really just, playing it day by day, really just focusing on us, because we can't stay focused on one opponent, because you never know, when a game's going to be canceled. So just focusing on us. And then once we get that opponent, then we'll scout, the day before.
And talking about both of you individually, even putting athletics aside, what have you learned about yourself in the midst of the pandemic?
I would say I'm a very patient person. Um, Even when like our games get canceled, like we drove all the way to Niagara just to come all the way back, or I would say more understanding. So I know what's going on in the world and I can't do nothing about it. So I just have to go with the flow.
And for me, I would say just not taking anything for granted, because, none of us were really expecting this, mid-March, just we're all sitting home. So I know we're just really just taking in everything day by day, and staying focused on ourselves, because I try to find new hobbies too, because, I couldn't really go outside a lot. I couldn't be with friends. So you had to, find other things to do.
What's a hobby you've picked up, Brenton?
Well, when I went home, I was playing cards with my family. That was a big part for me. We would play poker or spades, just having a family game night every night.
Something tells me it was competitive.
Oh, it was for sure. I love winning. So
Denai and Brenton, what has it been like playing in front of no fans? How do you handle that psychologically as an athlete?
You can go first, Brian.
all right. Honestly, it wasn't too big of an adjustment for me, because they had the fan noise, throughout the game. I couldn't see the fans, but I would still just try to simulate and I just play like a regular game, honestly. So
Yeah, same with me. Even when we have fans, like once I'm playing, I zone out everything. I'm just focused on the game. So it wasn't a big difference, but it does kind of suck that the fans aren't there cheering us on.
yeah, yeah. Especially like late in the game, because especially if we're playing at home, the fans can get into the game. You can hear the fans. There's a lot of adrenaline. There wasn't really none of that in the first game that I noticed. So it's a little bit of a difference.
The cutouts didn't bring that energy.
Yeah, yeah. Not really.
No.
Nobody's talking, nobody's screaming. So
Yeah, I think today you talk about being zoned in. That's so interesting to hear as a sportscaster. When I'm doing play-by-play of a game, you feed off that noise, and the crowd almost dictates when there's a big moment. And having been at the event center, it's all about momentum. So I understand what you're saying, but it's just so interesting to see it from that perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think like when the games are close, that the crowd definitely hypes you up and gets you going a little bit more. But I don't like, even I can hear the crowd, but I don't hear them, if that makes sense. I'm just so focused on what I have to do right now.
Yeah.
Well, that's like, and Brenton, I'm thinking of home games, but what about on the road? Some players love the hostile environment,
Yeah.
bring it on. And then obviously some teams, you work to build that mental toughness to handle a hostile environment. So beyond the travel, everything's sort of neutral, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like it's just the same, wherever we go, because even on our away games, there was no fans. They still have to cut out in the stands. So just like Denai said, really just focusing on what I have to do in that specific moment just really helps me just key in.
And is there more trash talk we've seen in the pros? Sometimes, what you might get lost in a crowd noise, an opposing team or opposing player say something that you can hear a little bit more closely.
Yeah, you definitely can, because it's definitely not as loud. You can definitely hear what everybody's saying. So there is definitely a little bit more trash talk.
Got to be careful what you guys say.
Yeah. No
No bulletin board material. Well, Denai and Brenton, wishing both of you great seasons ahead. Obviously, continued good health, and really happy to have you guys on.
All
Thank
right,
you
thank you.
for having us.